Good afternoon. Thank you every one of you for being here with us today. I am Tuba Ekşi from SETA Foundation at Washington, D.C. Today is the 6th anniversary of the failed coup attempt in Turkey, which served as a major turning point in Turkish political history. As SETA Foundation at Washington, D.C., we will have a full-day conference, including 3 panels today to remember and deeply understand the impact of the legacy of July 15. We will discuss political trends in Turkish politics after the July 15 coup attempt in our first event with our distinguished panelists. We will also have 2 more panels on Turkish foreign policy after the July 15 coup attempt and US-Turkey relations after the July 15 coup attempt later on. You may reach the program details via our website. I'm pleased to introduce you to our discussants for today's first panel. Professor Yasin Aktay is a former advisor to chairman of AK Party, President Erdogan, and he was also a former member of the parliament for 2 terms, which including the term of the coup attempt. And Professor Burhanettin Duran is the general coordinator of Turkey-based the SETA Foundation. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor to the experts. As a reminder for the audience, please do not hesitate to share your questions via Zoom during the event. Professor Aktay, I start with a very short question. What is the political significance of July 15 for Turkish politics?
Thank you very much. First, and at the beginning, I would like to express all my condolences to all the martyrs during that coup attempt. At that night, I'm remembering in that it was very, in one sense, at the beginning, it was very dark. It was night. It was the dark side of the night was the coup attempt, but there was also enlightened side of that night was indeed the 16th July, and in the 16th July, the Turkish people has witnessed a sort of victory of democracy at that night. And from my point of view, of course, I was at the National Assembly at that night. Indeed, I transferred to. It was closed because it was the end the weekend. All the members of the parliament were in holiday because of the vacation, weekend vacation. And I was, fortunately, I was in Ankara, and during when I heard that there is a coup attempt, and we gathered all in the members of the parliament existing in Ankara at that time, and we were gathered in the National Assembly. We opened the door of the National Assembly, and we had a meeting there to declare that we are against the coup d'etat and we against any coup. And Turkish history has a very long and very unfortunate history of the coup d'etats, which were succeeded also indeed, and of course unfortunate. Because in 60, in 70, in 80, in 1907, and even in 2007, there was another coup attempt, which was declared by which was being called as e-coup, electronic coup, which was put in internet at midnight, and that all these attempts and these events of coup d'etat were putting Turkey into a sort of very unfortunate history of the coup d'etat experiences. But this time, and this was very different, and because this coup attempt was rejected by the people of Turkey, and the Turkish people were very conscious, about their will. The will to be independent, the will to be free from coup d'etat attempts, because all the coup d'etat attempts had very traumatic impacts on the Turkish political and Turkish democratic consciousness. And this, in one sense, of course, this accumulated a sort of new knowledge and new new consciousness about in the mind of Turkish people. So what we witnessed at that night, it was very good, very brilliant side of the night that took place in the rejection of that coup attempt. It was very important because, you know, democracy is not something that people are fighting for and they are achieving democracy. When you look at the history of democracy in many democratic, even in the most democratic country, democracy is usually is not something that is attained democratically or in democratic ways. And just on the contrary, we see in many societies or many countries, we see democracy is given to the people, is a gift, a sort of a gift. People are not striving for achieving democracy. And even in Germany, for example, after the Second World War, we saw we transferred to the democratic regime. It was made by the help of America, US, and in many other European countries also, democracy is coming from above. And in Turkish society also, when we saw in the 40s, I mean in the 46, when the transformation of Turkish regime from one party monoparty regime to multi-party regime, we see as it was given to the society. Democracy was not achieved by the striving for democracy by people, but just given from above from top to the above. So. But this time is something different. People are striving for their democratical will, and they strived for democracy, and they, I mean, put aside people in some social movements, for example, are working for protesting or working for example, making some oppositional movement to the government. But in this case, people are striving for defending their government. They are striving for, and they are running in the streets at the nights by the invitation, by the calling, even before calling by Erdogan as leader. People were in the streets. For example, when we were in the streets, we hadn't heard anything from Erdogan yet. But after Erdogan invited all the people to the streets, and we saw the crowd of people were in the street to defend their democracy, to defend their will, and to defend their independence. And that coup d'etat, that was very exceptional. It was an exceptional case, I think. And when I was, for example, interviewing with TVs who were trying to connect me at that night, some people were saying that, oh, that's it. I mean, it is a coup d'etat, and there are many similar coup d'etats which happened in the history of Turkey. And now it is a repetition, it is repetitions of that coup d'etats, and everything is done. I said, no, it is not done, and the people of Turkey are more conscious now, and they are knowing the value of democracy. They are knowing the value of their freedom, and they will not leave this will and this level of democracy to some people who are seeking for venture in this time. And I saw, fortunately, and thanks God, he saw us that now really it was very different. And at that night, at the morning of that night, that very long night, we saw that Turkish people has rejected democracy, and they deserve democracy. And I think Turkish people are probably the single people who genuinely deserve their democracy. They paid some prices for that democracy, and there was about more than 250 martyrs at that night. About more than 2,000 people had been wounded. And we saw people of Turkey were really writing a sort of epic at that night. And then, of course, what happened after that, it was exceptional, really very, very exceptional. People are defending their democracy, and they are paying prices for their democracy, for their will, and nobody can touch to that to that level of democracy in Turkey. This is really exceptional in history of Turkey. I would like to say this, of course, and in very bold words. And also, of course, there was a sort of reaction against that the movement which was behind that coup attempt, of course. And this was very, very secret and very esoteric community or esoteric organization, which has been infiltrated infiltrating for many years, for decades, for more than 5 decades, was being infiltrated into all institutions of the government, in all institutions, not only the government, institutions of civil society, I mean, the army, the judicial system, and military administrative system. And beside all this, it was infiltrated in all levels of society. It was very well organized, but in very esoteric way, in very well secret way. I mean, there was a very, very highest level of secrecy was dominating this that organization, and that was what made it very, very dangerous, because they have some, for example, I have a sociologist, Sherif Mardin, very famous sociologist of Turkey, has emphasized one dimension or one aspect of that community which is behind that coup d'etat. He said that it is very, very difficult to study them sociologically. Methodologically, we have some difficulties in studying this community, because they are trying to reflect themselves as they want, as they desire. You cannot, for example, go beyond that walls of I mean security walls, and go to witness, or to make any sociological study about their social beings, because they look like an advertisement. A systematic advertisement is taking place, is working in their it was a machine of propaganda. It's a propaganda machine, and try to reflect anything like they want. And you cannot, for example, go beyond their own pictures, or their own reflections, and say something sociologically, for example, or to discover something behind that community, because they are lying, and simply they are lying, and they are not saying anything about their feelings, about their organizations, about their way of life, about their style of life. Just they are lying, and they give you what they want, not what, as a sociologist, what you want.
Yeah. Thanks, Professor Aktay, for your remarks and for your stress on that night for the whole Turkish history, political and sociological. And Professor Duran, I will also ask you the results, the effects of that night, and whole this change, major change for Turkish politics, the failed coup attempt. What the failed coup attempt changed something in the Turkish politics as we see. Can you tell your remarks on that, the results and the effects of the coup attempt?
Thank you, Tuğba, for your question. Before answering your question, I want to underline some personal aspect of the July 15 coup attempt. You know, I was one of the people who marched Bosphorus Bridge upon the call of President Erdogan for resistance to this coup attempt. And actually it was such a moment that it was the happiest time for my life. In the morning that I have seen that all the tanks of these coup planners were taken by the people, by the civilian resistance, civilian and democratic resistance. And I wanted to underline this just before making some points about your question. Yes, of course, that was a historical moment for Turkey's democracy. You know, Turkey's democracy has suffered from a lot of military interventions. Just in the Republican era, it was first the 1960 military intervention. And this created a legacy that lasted for decades. And that was the first time at that night, people reacted and actually prevented this coup attempt to be successful. So this is a new era, actually, for Turkish politics in many aspects. First, there is a clear legacy of preventing military interventions. So any coup d'etat planners would know that because this coup attempt was brought into justice. So these planners were not just arrested, but also were punished. And this is something, a concrete result that produced other following points. One is the supremacy of policy. I mean, supremacy of civilian politicians. Civilian politicians are in a position to determine the future course of Turkey in any case. This is something new. Yes, this is bringing so much competition, polemics, in terms of daily politics. And this is what's happening in Turkey now, especially when we are approaching the 2023 elections. But still, all politicians know that if they win the elections, they could run the country in accordance with their policies. So they are not under the tutelage of military. So this is very critical for Turkey, and I believe that the people who lost their lives at that night gave a gift to Turkish nation that after that night, all politics should be conducted under the national will. So the elected politicians. This is the first result that I want to mention. Another one is, of course, the new nationalism in Turkey. What do I mean by that? Yes, there are some emotional aspect to nationalism. I know that, but this time in Turkish nationalism, after July 15 coup attempt, the love for Turkey, the love for fatherland, the love for state and democracy, all of them are together, is a substance that feeds a new kind of nationalism in Turkey that is inclusive, not exclusive, of course, not xenophobic or anti-Western, but it's full of love for fatherland, for Turkish nation. And actually, this created a common ground for politics. And I see that in spite of all the polemics, all the differences among the parties, political parties, this common ground for Turkish people is a substance that all politicians know that they should act in this realm properly. And I think this is a base for strengthening democracy, for consolidating democracy in Turkey. But I should make a reservation about this analysis that unfortunately some evaluations just came from the opposition parties about the controlled coup d'etat, civilian coup d'etat, and such naming in a way undermine this common ground to some extent. But still, I believe that this ground for new nationalism in Turkey is still very effective in any kind of politics in the future. Another one is, of course, after the military coup d'etat, the transition to presidential system. This transition to presidential system was something new to Turkey, and actually it couldn't be achieved if there was no failed coup attempt. Because in Turkey, generally such big rules, such changes of big issues were considered as the realm of military people. They, drafted the constitutions, or they determined the people that who will craft these constitutions. But for the first time, there was such a big change in the Turkish system, and this new presidential system was very effective for another result: the new approach to foreign policy and security issues in Turkey. After the coup attempt, Turkey conducted a new foreign policy activism. You will know that there were 4 military operations in the northern Syria, and again Turkey's military presence in the eastern Mediterranean, and Turkey's military intervention and actually support to UN-backed Libyan government, and Turkey's support to Azerbaijan in the Nagorno-Karabakh, in the second Karabakh war. So these were the major Turkey's activism in the realm of foreign policy and security. And they were considered as proactive operations. And of course, this has brought Turkey's presence in the international system to a different level. And sometimes we hear criticism coming from the Western capitals, but giving them aside this all criticism, all politics and all Western capitals know that there is a strong leader in Turkey, and just after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, President Erdogan is the leader who can negotiate at the same time with Ukraine and Russia by following a balanced foreign policy towards this war. And at the same time, these all conflictual issues and Turkey's presence in mediating this kind of problems is taking Turkey into a different level in terms of diplomacy. So all of the results, if we combine all of them together, I can say that Turkey presents a new diplomatic activism, diplomatic presence that Turkey is following this new national understanding. At the beginning, it was just based on self-help understanding, self-help conscience, because the Western capitals' reaction to this coup attempt was so much disappointing. And then Turkey criticized some of them, and we have experienced some strained relations, some tensions between Ankara and Western capitals. But later, it was clear that Turkey is following a conscious policy of fighting with terrorism, including Daesh, FETÖ, and PKK at the same time. And this new reality of Turkey actually is something that the Turkish people have acquired after this defeated coup attempt. Well, aren't there any problems? Yes, of course, there are some problems, especially the fight against FETÖ organization, which is the coup planners at that night, is still continuing, and there are some international networks that should be cut by the support of our friends from capitals of the world. And Turkey is very insistent on continuing this fight. And again, Turkey is trying to consolidate her democracy by extending some reforms in spite of the old problems coming from our region. And again, this pandemic and after the Russian invasion of Ukraine posed some difficulties and some risks to Turkey, from migration to security issues and food and energy problems. So within all parameters, I believe that Turkey has a new capital that comes from the political consciousness of that defeated coup d'etat. And this will strengthen Turkey's democracy and Turkey's capabilities in making contribution to the solution of global problems.
Thank you. Thank you for your remarks, Mr. Duran. And Mr. Aktay, as Professor Duran mentioned that there is a huge ground in terms of a new kind of nationalism for the Turkish people. I want to ask you that, what are the domestic impacts on Turkish domestic policy after the coup attempt within the context of the ruling government and the opposition? What kind of change we saw after the coup attempt?
Especially as Professor Burhanuddin also has mentioned, one of the most important earnings of that, I talk about, sorry that I am talking about the earning of that coup attempt, the failed coup attempt, is that the transition from to the presidential system, and the presidential system has brought to Turkey, has brought about many changes and many positive aspects to Turkish politics, of course with opposition, not without opposition. Turkey now is much more democratic country, and everybody has to be more transparent into Turkish politics, of course, because some secret organization and secret conspiracies in Turkish politics are now a little bit done, not to say completely done. Unfortunately, that conspiracy, the tendency to conspiracy has never dying and has never been done. But in Turkish politics, we have now, after the failed coup d'etat, a sort of consensus within Turkish politics has taken place. That means the consensus about to be against the coup d'etats, and the consensus about about democracy, and consensus about some a sort of new Turkish nationalism, which is being filled by its content is being filled by more values of democracy, or about democracy, and to be against any military intervention, etc. And the many reformations also took place about to demilitarizing the Turkish politics. Demilitarizing means by demilitarization is, Turkish politics was being dominated by a sort of tutelage, military tutelage. And it was a sort of very usual thing that in every decade, one or two coup d'etat or military intervention were taking place, and all the Turkish legislation or some institutions were under the tutelage of military. And this was very usual thing, and everybody was familiar with that, and nobody was objecting to this. But after the coup d'etat, we saw what is usual is not the intervention of the military, but the military is belonging to the politics, is belonging to the political sphere, not the reverse. And there was a sort of joke which was being made about Turkey is a country, is a state where the army had a nation. No, a sort of transition took place after the coup d'etat, that now the Turkish nation has an army, not the reverse. I mean, and this is also a change, and this is the earnings after that. The rising consciousness which brought about that change, that consciousness change, and that level of consciousness, I mean, took reached to that level, and then in the Turkish politics, of course, we saw also some divisions, of course, also took place, and as Dr. Burhanuddin Duran mentioned about the earnings, other easiness to decision making because of the presidential system, and then we see the terror also was eliminated. I mean, the terror problem in Turkey, especially the PKK terror problem, was taken until the coup d'etat. You know, there was a Kurdish problem, and the Kurdish problem was tried. It was the problem. Not only a political problem, but also was a security problem in Turkey. Now we can say that, of course, there is a security problem which is coming from beyond Turkey, not from within Turkey. Fortunately, in Turkey, after the coup d'etat and the situation and the atmosphere that took place in Turkish decision-making process, we saw the terrorism problem was eliminated because of the good fight against terrorism, and because I think, and we discovered that we realized that this fight was being hindered by the FETÖ elements. The FETÖ elements were hindering that effective fight against terrorism, and that's why for 40 years we couldn't took any step forward in our fight against terrorism of PKK. But now we can say that the level of terrorism, I mean the danger of PKK terrorism within Turkey was diminished to the zero level. But the problem is now coming from Syria or from Iraq, and Turkey is trying to do its best also within Syria. And unfortunately, now we see that United States is supporting PYD or some extensions of PKK terrorist organization, but Turkey now is more powerful because the betraying elements within the army or within some institutions of Turkey are now have been eliminated, and these were hindering Turkey from a more effective fight against terrorism. Also, Turkey, as you witnessed in many sphere, industrial sphere and defense industry has advanced in very considerable level, and it came to produce its own defense industry to about 70 or 75% of its needs. And Turkey, all these are because of the presidential system. Presidential system is, of course, very easy to make the decision making and to govern Turkey, of course. But somebody, of course, the opposition, of course, is making its opposition, and nobody can prevent them from doing so. And that is from the nature of the democracy. And what is now available for the President Erdogan will be available for all the president elected for the president of Turkey. And this is from the nature of democracy. And those who are criticizing Turkey, we were hearing all these discourses from this FETÖ organization were processing that propaganda machine and propaganda apparatus to give the impression that Turkey is very authoritarian now, and Erdogan has become very authoritative. And this discourse and this profile of Erdogan had been elaborated at the beginning of 1912 or 13, especially after the Gezi movement. And we see all the media organizations belonging to FETÖ movement were working and elaborating that profile of Erdogan to do or to make from that story an authoritative Erdogan. But now that was, of course, was propaganda, and Erdogan, of course, it's not a secret. He's a very powerful leader, and this powerful leader has come by way of democracy, not by way of any other way. He didn't come by coup d'etat. He didn't come by, for example, violating any democratic rule or a political rule. Just on the contrary, all steps he's taken forward had been taken forward through democracy, the democratic process, elections, and we always believing in elections. So That possibilities, I mean, all these possibilities of democracy, democratical possibilities are open for everybody, not only for Erdogan. And Erdogan is only one figure in that democratical process. But of course, now he's the leader of Turkey, and now he is still most powerful and most sympathetical figure in Turkish political sphere now. And now he has more chance to be the next president of Turkey also. But that doesn't mean, of course, the others have no any chance, and he will come by way of, for example, by unfair electoral processes. Now, just on the contrary, all electoral process is very transparent in Turkey, very democratic, and everybody has the same chance in this democratical process.
Thanks for your remarks, Mr. Aktay. After the failed coup attempt, a referendum was held and the voters in Turkey agreed to adapt the presidential system for the country, as you both mentioned. And how did this change impact Turkey's politics, Mr. Duran? I also want to combine this question with a question from the audience, which says there are some other questions too about the presidential system and the authoritarianism criticism, as Mr. Aktay mentioned. Well, what has been the result of the coup for the domestic institutions and the democracy? Mr. Duran, can you just maybe get a little further on that?
Yeah. First, the supremacy of politics over military or security institutions is very important to Turkish democracy. And one great step, one great achievement is to make military subservient to politicians, to civilians. This is very critical. Maybe this is not understood enough under the strong leadership of President Erdogan, because we know that in the last 20 years, Erdogan is ruling the country, ruling Turkey. So people are not aware of the critical changes made in the Turkish political system. Presidential system is favorable to prevent chaotic or temporary unstable governments. Turkey has suffered a lot from the unique parliamentary system in Turkey. It was very suitable to military tutelage attempts. And actually the constitution were framed in a way that will ease military tutelage over politics. So all these defects are cured or removed from Turkish political system. Of course, that doesn't mean that there is any chance, any possibility of military intervention at all. If any members of FETÖ or such military-minded people are allowed again to take passage into the system, then this would create, of course, a problem of another military coup d'etat. But for now, I believe that all politicians, whether from the power, from the governing party or from the opposition, know the reality and significance of this primacy of politics over military. And of course, there are new institutions that were established after the transition to presidential system, and some of them councils. I'm a member of the Presidential Council on Security and Foreign Policy. These are making their performance under the new system, of course, with the leadership of President Erdogan. And this new institution, adding to these new institutions, of course, there are some other institutions that coming from the earlier parliamentary system. It's a kind of mixture. And I believe that Turkey is consolidating her democracy by making such critical decisions in its surrounding region. some colleagues, some friends from Western capitals do not understand the difficulties of Turkey within this surrounding region. We have two neighbors that are in civil war, and Turkey is fighting with 2, 3 terrorist organizations. And at the same time, Turkey is facing many difficulties if there is a war in Ukraine, and Turkey is under some problems. In terms of refugees, Turkey is trying to keep refugee problems safe. So all of these problems are settled, are dealt with the achievements of this presidential system. I believe that if there was no transition to such system, and there was no strong leaders as President Erdogan, Turkey would have more problems and difficulties in dealing with all these problems. Even this may create further risks and problems to our partners in the West, our partners in Europe. So Turkey is in such a place that tries to stabilize the surrounding region and at the same time contribute to stability, peace, and actually trade among the regional powers. And with this normalization policy, with the recent normalization policy, Turkey is trying to use the advantages of the presidential system to make new foreign policy decisions. And actually this is helping to normalize relations between Turkey and other regional countries, including Saudi Arabia, Israel, the Emiratis, and maybe in the near future with Egypt. So all of the capabilities, flexibilities that Turkey showed in dealing with the foreign policy issues and security issues are somehow related to Turkey's presidential system. Yes, we know that there is an intense debate in Turkey about the strength of President Erdogan and some criticism towards the presidential system. But these are the discussions that should be considered as natural to democracies. Even I can mention one case from the US. Just after the last presidential elections, there was such discussion on whether this election was fair or not. Those people who support Trump, President Trump, was thinking that this election was not fair. It is very clear that under presidential systems, this politics is so much polarized, and then you can hear many criticism from both sides. And as American democracy is capable of all dealing with these problems and consolidating its democracy, and Turkey is a similar position that could deal with all the problems of consolidation of democracy. Yes, we have some other problems in Turkey which were related to our neighbors and regional security problems. But I believe that this spirit of July 15 resistance was not towards authoritarianism or putting your national will under the tutelage of any institution or any person. It was towards embracing your national will, your choices to be in a supreme position to make decisions for the future of Turkey, for the future of your country. So this is the spirit of democracy. All politicians, whether from the governing party or oppositions, should know this clear reality that in Turkey, it is the national will who make the final decision. So this is very crystal clear, and I believe that in spite of all the polemics and discussions on Turkish politics, this sub-promise of national will dominate, is dominating and will dominate the result, and the elections, the coming elections will not be an exception to this.
Thanks for your remarks, Mr. Duran. And I would, since we are a bit out of time, I would like to ask if you have any remarks, and I would like to add a last-minute questions from Ellen Makowski. And if you can answer that, Mr. Aktay, I would be happy. And Mr. Makowski is underlining the recent events on the charges in Turkey with insulting the president, I'm quoting, and he is asking that as a democratic structure in Turkey, and people are charging with the crimes like insulting the president, and he wants you to maybe give some details about the relation between the democracy and the insulting the president charges in the country.
Of course, the insulting is a crime. I mean, in Turkish existing rules and existing legal system, it is a crime, and it is something. It's the right of the Erdogan is not something who arbitrarily or decides something to put in jail. Or he insulted me, put in jail or kill him. No, he is not like a leader like this. He is just applying to the court, and the court is deciding about whether he is punished or not, and it is just a legal issue in Turkey. It is not a sort of, for example, don't imagine that in Turkey Erdogan has the right and has the power to, for example, decide somebody to be put in jail because he insulted me, or even whoever is insulting Erdogan is not being put in jail. Other than, for example, a very long process of legal process or judicial process, and after that he is being put. I mean that of course Erdogan has the right, for example, to forgive, or has the right to defend himself in that way. But that is not the way, for example, that somebody is imagining that in an authoritative way he is beyond all legal system and he can decide everything, and his decision is being taken as a command.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, our time is finished, and thanks for all your contributions. And if you have any final remarks, you can add them too. And also, I would like to thank all the audience that are here and also contribute with their questions. And I would like to make a small reminder for that we have another event on Turkish foreign policy after the July 15 coup attempt at 1:15 p.m. And of course, we are waiting for you on that event too. Thanks for all. Thanks, Mr. Duran and Mr. Aktay, for your contributions again. Thank you very much.
Welcome.